This is HBR News number 362. Colbert team commits insurrection? And does Juneteenth exist to erase Father's Day? Where we reflect on the stories of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Happy Father's Day to anyone who, didn't hear it from us originally. Father's Day was a couple days ago on Sunday. I just want to say on behalf of Honey Badger Radio, fathers are probably the most underappreciated demographic of people on Earth and in most of history. Without you guys to, help raise children and the next generation and give them that strength and resilience that they're going to need, I think that we'd be in a much worse place. So I say this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you and happy Father's Day. If you're a father that's watching, you have no idea how important you are. I know that you're really unappreciated though. So happy Father's Day.
You just hate single mothers, Brian. How dare you?
That's right. Yeah.
I'll be even more blunt about it. Happy Father's Day only to fathers.
Yeah, only to fathers.
Honestly, and grandfathers, obviously, because grandfathers were fathers before they were grandfathers.
Are you saying they've been grandfathered in?
Yes,
yeah.
They've been grandfathered in. A lot of dads turn to their dads for advice. What'd you do when I did this? I don't remember. That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's bullshit that people say Happy Father's Day to the single moms who do it all. You don't do it all.
No.
You don't even do half of it. Half of it would include partnering with the father of your children so that your children have the benefit of both parents. So you do less than half of it. You get credit for less than half of it. You deserve credit for less than half of it. And you should shut the fuck up about wishing each other Happy Father's Day because you're not fathers.
Can't we at least give them 77% of it?
No.
They haven't earned it. So
the credit gap should run right along with the accountability gap, and nobody widens the accountability gap more than women who choose to exclude the fathers from their children's lives and then try to take credit for everything that the father would have done if they had just let him.
We love you too, mothers, but it's not Mother's Day right now, so fuck off.
Yeah. So happy belated Father's Day. Welcome to Honey Badger Radio. Hope you guys are doing well. And we're going to get right into what the topics are. But my name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, Mike J, Dr. Randomcam, and we're going to be talking about a number of stories.
Where is she? Where is she?
Did I say
You
Allison?
didn't say she'd be here. What the hell?
Oh, no, I mean Hannah. Sorry, Hannah.
Oh, don't do that.
All you women look the same to me.
Looking under the table.
It's okay. We have one guy in the Discord that always says hi, Allison, when I come into the room. So it's a running gag and it's tradition at this point. So.
Well, also, I want to briefly mention that when I talk about fathers, I'll include like male mentors and big brothers and people who are men who have been sort of put in the position of having, or choosing to be guardians and mentors to, young people, whether they're boys or girls. So, okay. But anyway, sorry about that. So it's Hannah, Mike J, Dr. Randomcam. I got to keep that in mind. We have a great show lineup for you guys today, so please be sure to come to continue the conversations both in the chat, like right now in the live chat, and in the comments section. On this week's HBR News Show, we're going to be talking about USA Today's removal of 23 articles because their journalists fabricated her sources. A group associated with talk show host Stephen Colbert, including the creator, I believe it's the creator of Triumph, the insult comic dog. They were arrested for unlawful entry on Capitol grounds. Julian Assange is going to be extradited back to the United States and more, so stick around. It's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show. And it's a random article I came across, but I thought it could be fun to look at. This is about a comedian in Australia, so I don't know this guy. Maybe I've seen him around. I didn't know. Name Hamish or just Amish. I don't know. Hamish Blake. It's Hamish, right? Hamish Blake won something called the Gold Logie. And apparently this exposes a huge double standard because it proves that, you know, men don't have to work nearly as hard as women to win awards or something. So we're going to look at this obviously cringe opinion piece about this Australian comedian that's clearly stealing the thunder from those hilarious female comedians that we know are all around us at all times. And, you know, you just have to listen very carefully and you'll hear how funny they are. And if you don't think they're funny, it's because you're dumb. So we're going to look at that in the Patreon only show. In addition, if you would like to join us on the Patreon only show, you have to become a Badger by going to feedthebadger.com. $5 a month will get you into the Discord where you'll be able to watch all the additional content. And if you give it higher levels, then there's even more access and more stuff that you can do. You can be in the conversation. You can disagree with us, call us names, whatever. We have game nights. We have movie nights. All kinds of stuff is going on. So please go to feedthebadger.com and consider giving us some support. And in exchange, we offer you some community, which you might want. I don't know. So, and if you don't want to wake up one morning to find that you're not able to find our content because YouTube finally yeeted us off of the mainstream internet, then please go to badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com so that you can follow up. So, okay, so I want to get into today's stories, and I kind of played around with the order that I picked them in. Originally, there was this story of a boy that was killed and a whole bunch of problems that happened at a Juneteenth event that took place in Washington, D.C. And the reason why I wanted to talk about it was because there is other things going on aside from this federal holiday. That is, it was made a federal holiday, I believe, last year by the Biden administration. So for those of you who are not Americans, you might not know what this is. So Juneteenth was something that was being pushed to be recognized or, you know, seen as a federal holiday. And the reason for it, well, essentially the story is that on June 19th, this is the day in which the last freed black slaves in Texas learned that they were free. And of course, you know, there's a lot of implications as to why that is. I would guess that it being the 1860s, it just took a while for the word to get out because they didn't have email addresses at the time. But of course, this is being used as a political tool to essentially create more grievance and remind people of how bad all of that stuff was. And I'm going to stand by that. I know that there are people who have, you know, made some defense of it and all of that. But look, you know, this is not the reason that this thing exists. It has nothing to do with slavery. It has nothing to do with things being better for black folks in the United States. I promise you, it has nothing to do with it. And the fact that the way things have essentially been laid out for me demonstrates what I'm talking about, and I will explain. Notice that they have made Juneteenth a federal holiday, and it just so happens, I mean, what that means that people get the day off. That means if you look it up on Google, you'll get like this animation that has like all these hands and these Pan-African flags, which, by the way, Pan-African flags, nothing to do with slavery, nothing to do with America. They're completely irrelevant, okay? And the reason for this is that the people that are behind this are Pan-African socialists, and I will explain that this is important because what they're doing is they're using, you know, their own distorted version of history to essentially divide us and make us resentful, make us angry, make us afraid of each other. That's all this has ever been about, and it only harms everyone, not just, you know, whitey, not like it harms blacks as well. And they don't care. They don't care about what it is they claim that they care about. It's all about distorting reality. It's all about taking control of the narrative, and they do it on Father's Day. That's the most egregious thing because it's essentially, this is not an unconscious or accidental thing. They chose to put this out on Father's Day because they hate fathers. And if you go to Black Lives Matter on Instagram or Black Lives Matter on Facebook or other social media sites, they will be talking about Juneteenth, not Father's Day. And in fact, they're making demands now, and they're using Juneteenth as a precedent to demand reparations. If you guys remember, Black Lives Matter has no interest in the issues affecting men, the issues affecting black men, and by extension, the issues affecting the black population. So they are not in any way invested in that. They will say whatever they have to say to look good, but they're not good people. You know, they are much. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a ever-growing pattern of behavior, much like International Men's Day has been recognized since 1994, but the date was changed to 19th November on 2009. It wasn't until 2013 when International Toilet Day was introduced on the exact same day. By the way, the UN recognizes one of these dates, but not the other. Can you all perhaps guess which one the United Nations recognizes?
Yeah, exactly.
It's World Toilet Day.
Yeah, it's Toilet Day.
There's a way to handle the fact that Toilet Day was introduced on International Men's Day. Like, obviously, if you go through the history of indoor plumbing and what existed before indoor plumbing is significantly better for all of society, all of civilization, than not having indoor plumbing. And a very important part of that was the creation of the toilet by a man for a very pampered woman, a queen, in fact. So clearly, we should have International Toilet Day on International Men's Day, because even though people might not understand it, it is one of the greatest inventions in history. It saved people from a lot of diseases and a lot of uncomfort, and discomfort, inconvenience. Like, I don't know if anybody who wasn't alive before indoor plumbing was common in this country. Like, have you ever been camping, maybe out in the winter? Sure. People who like to go hunting, go camping in the wintertime, right? Go out to an outhouse in 0-degree weather to use the bathroom in the middle of the night. Go out to a little building full of spiders and bugs and little mice and stuff like that. Hope nothing bites you on the ass. Or live in a city where stuff gets dumped out the window into the street. I'm incredibly grateful to men for indoor toilets. And
sure.
if you think about Juneteenth being on Father's Day, you can turn that around on them just as well as you can turn putting International Toilet Day on International Men's Day around on feminists. Because the fact is, nothing has hit the black population harder during the 20th century than the effort to take fathers out of their homes. That has done more damage than any other thing our government in this country has done. So it's pretty appropriate, if we are going to have a holiday that celebrates black freedom, we should be celebrating it on Father's Day, because without fathers, it's meaningless. Without fathers, teenagers die in the streets screaming for their moms.
I am not going to acknowledge Juneteenth under any circumstances. It's Father's Day or it's nothing.
Along those lines, fun fact, the dishwasher was famously invented by a woman. At least it was commissioned by a rather wealthy woman to be invented by an inventor. And it was, so fair enough. So I hereby declare March the 8th to be Dishwasher Day.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Well, let's look at what what the setup is. So all of these things are not on accident, okay? So I'm going to show you this PSA. So let me share my Brave browser with you guys so you guys can see it. And this is being put out by, again, like I said, a comedian. Let me share this with the audience so you guys can see it. And this is a Father's Day public service announcement sketch. Supposedly funny. It's a comedy sketch. in theory.
Dad does so much for the family. This Father's Day, give him what he really needs. Not a home brewing kit, not socks. Give him safe and legal access to abortion. Hello, I'm noted male feminist W. Kamau Bell. You know how much I've spent on birth control in my life? $213, mostly on condoms that expired in my wallet. You know how much my wife has spent?
$17,530.
All right, I'm just pausing there for the banana. Essentially, I'll play through the rest of it if you guys want to see it. Essentially, this Father's Day, men have to step up, and they need to support women, and they need to support abortion rights, even if they are fathers, which is weird because it's like, do you want to be fathers, or I don't know. Let's keep going. Of course, they're adding up all the costs of, like what it costs women to use birth control. And obviously birth control affects women more. Let's just be real. That's what this is about. This is the thing about Father's Day that really upsets me, okay? I see this every year. All it is when it's acknowledged, which it almost never is, but when it is, it's always, men, you need to do more. Men, you're not doing enough. Men, you're losers. It's all it is. Like, this is endless. What is this going to do to a young man who is hoping to one day have a family of his own? What is it going to do?
Dads, if you've ever had sex and not had a kid, it's likely birth control or abortion played a role. We're used to not having to worry about it. But nobody ever got pregnant from a vibrator.
Okay, that's a lie, by the way. Women have a window of fertility, and men don't have a problem generally, like spending money on birth control. Okay, so don't give me this. If you have sex, you're just gonna get her pregnant. That's bullshit. So anyway, but I don't. What am I talking? I'm just repeating science. I don't know why. That science. We don't live in that world right now. We did like a year ago, but not now.
For that you need...
By the way, I noticed, before you go on, he said he'd spent $213 on condoms. And his wife happened to have also spent $214 on condoms.
Who was she using them with?
They spent equal amounts on condoms, and condoms are the only option the man has. The woman spent a lot of money on options that only she has. Fuck's sake.
Yeah, that's I don't know. All right.
I spun an egg. I spun an egg.
That's right. See, the majority of people seeking abortions are already parents. They know what's right for their families. They would know if having another kid would send them spiraling into poverty.
It definitely would.
Oh, this is another one of these things where, they try to discourage people from having kids too by saying, oh, it's going to cost you so much money. Look, if people want to do it, they should be able to do it. But of course, these guys, it's almost like they don't want fathers to exist. Because if the woman is always getting an abortion, then there's no dad. Oh, wow. Crazy, isn't it?
Well, there's a dad, Brian. It's the state.
Oh, yeah. It's the state. We're basically going to make Father's Day into State Day eventually. And then Juneteenth will have to move over.
Funny you should mention God, because there's literally no mention of the word abortion in here. Just like in here, there's no mention of how the state is going to help these families if they force to bear these children.
It's almost like this is just a way for a few fragile men to use religion to control our bodies.
Hold on.
It's very strange, but before welfare existed and before abortion was common and everything, seems like we almost never heard from middle class people about a raging issue of people's inability to control whether or not they created a pregnancy. Like now, all of a sudden, people act like men are the knock-up fairy, and a woman has no control, no agency in determining whether or not she allows anything to enter her uterus. and whether she allows it to live on the way in, right? And that's the narrative now. What women choose is men's fault.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, the invocation of the Bible in this is completely meaningless. It's like the majority of people who have an issue with abortion, by the way, they're women. They don't make a religious argument or a fundamentalist argument against it. They're talking about when life begins. That's the argument. And that if life begins in the womb, or if it begins in conception, then perhaps that life should be protected, because if we're in their minds killing it, then it's murder. And that is wrong. But of course, when it comes to women's bodies and women's comfort, those arguments are not allowed to be made. And that's ultimately what this is about. But you'll notice that these people, they bring up, what they would consider to be religious doctrine or hypocrisy to make their argument stronger. But no one's making that argument.
Well, you see, Brian, they have nothing but hatred and contempt for Christianity. Mm-hmm. So that argument wouldn't work on them, but it might work on us.
Yeah, exactly. So, and again, note the irony that he's talking about abortion while his own kids are in the ad with him. Are they aware of what he's talking about? Like, isn't that a bit weird? And on top of that, he's making Father's Day about what men should do for women. This is what I'm telling you. I see this every year. There's something for Father's Day that has nothing to do with honoring fathers, that has nothing to do with talking about why fathers are important or why they're good for their families, and everything to do with what they need to do for women. It's literally just that, over and over.
Honey, Daddy's doing a PSA. Okay. Ask any parent. Parenting is a job, a wonderful, very difficult job. And since when does America force anybody to do a job against their will without paying them by controlling their bodies?
Oh, he's making a slavery reference.
Wait.
Again, we're back on the Juneteenth thing. Remember,
we do that all the time, actually, in the United States. It's called child support enforcement, and that is actually done every day. Men who don't participate in the system, if they're drafted into it by a woman, end up in jail. And in jail, they're still forced to engage in labor for the state's profit, and the profit of the owner of the jail. So we don't do it to women. We don't do it to women. But we do it to men. We do it to men every day, en masse. Multitudes of men are subjected to this. Some of them commit suicide over it. Some of them go to debtor's prison over it, and some of them die from the effects of working 2 and sometimes 3 jobs to keep up with child support orders after their ex-wives or their baby mamas refuse to work. So that was a dumb line for them to throw in there, because there's going to be a lot of men out there going, that's being done to me right now.
Yeah, well, if it's in service to women, authoritarianism is 100% okay. This is feminism.
Yeah, they won't think of that.
They don't care.
Make the video. They don't care, but it does make the video very unpersuasive to all the men out there that are like, hey, it's happening to me already.
Yeah, I mean, I think so, but this video wouldn't need to exist for them to feel aggrieved by that, regardless. I think they're basically...
but it's not going to. So this video wasn't created to speak to men who already agree with it. This video was made to try to shame men into changing their position on something. Yeah. And it's really hard to shame someone with, well, nobody's doing this to you, when they actually are.
Well, again, these people are really out of touch. I mean,
they are.
Yeah. So this guy, he doesn't know that. He probably thinks he's immune. He probably thinks it'll never happen to him. And that's why he doesn't even acknowledge its existence. And he believes most likely that men that are being forced to pay child support and are going through that, well, that's their fault that happened. And so therefore, it's not his problem and it's not related, even though a lot of those men are also black, which are people he claims to give a shit about, but he obviously doesn't. That's the thing. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
You should have spent $2,000 on condoms. That would have made all the difference.
Yes. And that's the thing that I really want to drive home. It's very important. It's very important that we know and we understand that people like this do not care about the people they claim to care about. They really, really don't. All of this is in service to their ego and so that they continue to have access and so they continue to get paid. Nothing more. Nothing. Okay? So let me finish this.
Oh, yeah, right. So as we celebrate Father's Day, let's also celebrate birth control, abortion, and bodily autonomy. Because man, have we benefited from those.
So enjoy your day, guys, and welcome to the fight. We've been waiting for you.
Happy Father's Day!
All right. So that's that PSA. And
if you work for CNN, you can't call yourself a comedian. I'm sorry.
No.
Wait, was that supposed to be funny?
You do qualify as a joke, though.
Let's celebrate abortion is a pretty good joke, albeit a dark one.
It can be if it's well done. I've laughed at some abortion jokes, but this is not like. I mean, when I learned that this guy was supposed to be a comedian, I was like, wow, I have never laughed at anything he's ever said. Like I've seen him around, but he is like an anti-comedian. He is a black hole. It just nothing fun. Okay, so we got that. So now let's sort of pull this into a larger context because all of these talking points are coming from the same place. So it's not an accident. Okay, number one, we get Juneteenth, which has been pushed as a federal holiday, which the Biden administration made into a federal holiday as of last year, and people get the day off, and it just so happens by some cosmic accident to fall right on Father's Day, right there. Okay, and people get the day off and they get to whatever party, but mostly it's about staying mad and afraid about something that happened 200 years ago. And it's only because some people got the news late because we didn't have the internet at the time and the Pony Express had to go from Washington to fucking Texas to tell them the news. Not exactly a big fucking deal, but it's being made into a big deal. And because people are moral cowards, they don't have the ability to say, you know what? No, this day is kind of bullshit. Because we already know about the Emancipation Proclamation now. We already know about all of that entailed. We don't need another day, but they want it because it has cultural impact, it has cultural cachet, so that you can continue to aggrieve people to essentially, it's all about maintaining this narrative, which is why their flag is literally an African flag. It's got nothing to do with America. Those people, I hate to say it, but if you're descended from slaves, you're also descended from a conquered tribe in Africa. So you shouldn't have the same attachment. Sorry, you lost. That's why you ended up here. That's the truth. I'm sorry to break it to you. Those people in that other country don't love you. Okay? They don't. So first of all, there's that. Get over it, figure out a way forward, and then you got the fact that it overlaps on Father's Day, which is the funny thing is that the one thing that could fix the black population in the United States is literally putting fathers back in the home, and they're literally erasing them. And Black Lives Matter wants to do that because they have said that on their charter, that they want to disrupt the what did they call it? Western prescribed patriarchal nuclear family, which basically means they don't want fathers. They don't even want men around, okay? And now we get to what happened on Juneteenth, which I think it's worth sharing because it basically culminates in what they actually want. So a boy, 15 years old, was killed, and 3 others, including a cop, were injured by shooting at an unauthorized DC Juneteenth music festival in Mochella. A 15-year-old boy was killed, and 3 people, including a cop, were wounded after shots rang out at a social justice-inspired musical festival in Washington, D.C. A total of 4 people, the dead boy, 2 adult partygoers, and a cop, were shot on Sunday evening near the intersection of 14th and U Street Northwest, where the Mochella Music Festival, a Juneteenth celebration, was underway. Witnesses described how the teenager was screaming out for his mother after being shot, WTTG reported. We certainly want people... Oh, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
No, finish the article first.
Okay. We certainly want people to be held accountable when they hold unpermitted events in our city, Metropolitan Police Department Chief Robert J. Conti III told reporters. Unfortunately, things like this can happen when you have the wrong mix of people or people who introduced firearms to the situation. That's unfortunate, and we'll be having conversations with those persons very, very shortly and look at what legal action should be taken as the result of an unpermitted event in our city. And it was absolutely insane that day. And it's just incredibly ironic that we are ignoring Father's Day, just like they have ignored fathers, and this is the outcome. That's all. That's what I'm saying. So, Mike, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just have to say thank you, young man. You've done so much for us, not just by dying, but by calling out for your mother in your final moments. If I'm doing the Nancy Pelosi thing, I hope I'm drunk enough to pull it off. It fills me with such warm, gooey delight that you died in such desperate, abject terror. I can't begin to tell you how much money we've already raised for the cause thanks to your bold sacrifice. Not to mention how many emotionally brainwashed foot soldiers who are now ready and willing to stuff 100 illegal ballots into an unsurveilled Dropbox in the hope that they can save the world and also earn a cool $100 as long as they get photographic proof of their federal crimes. And all because you, beautiful, innocent, young you, called out for your mother. And you actually meant your mother and not your girlfriend, whom you rather disturbingly referred to as Mama. Thank you, wayward child, for getting ensnared in our directionless, endless series of violent riots for no reason. We don't even have to tiptoe around your toxicology report. It appears you were actually sober at the time and hadn't even committed any crimes, let alone a litany of offenses as long as my arm. Thank you. I only wish there were millions more good Samaritans like you getting needlessly killed in the line of absolutely fuck all, so that I can line my pockets again while squatting over your grave and laying a fat, steaming grumpy on your tombstone, blaming it on the dog. Life is good. Let's do this again sometime. I am getting away with this, Lulila. I'm off for the best wank ever.
I just want to know why this is being just discussed as a tragedy and an unauthorized event taking place, and not okay. So a total of 4 people. All right. When we hear all the time about mass shootings, you look up the information they use to discuss this, and anything 3 or more people counts as a mass shooting. So this is a mass shooting. Why haven't we heard about the shooter? Why haven't we heard anything about it having anything to do with the event? The shooting being completely related to the festivities, or the individual's connection with the event, and so on. We hear about that with school shooters. Oh, there was another school shooting, and it doesn't matter whether it was something that happened at 11 o'clock at night and actually started somewhere else and just spilled onto school property at some point. It doesn't matter if nobody was actually killed or even hit by a bullet. As long as somebody fired a gun on school property, it's a school shooter. But in this instance here, we have more than 3 people who were killed or were shot, and a kid was killed. A 15-year-old is a kid.
Yes, it is.
Right? Not a young man. You can think of him as a young man, but a 15-year-old is a kid. A 15-year-old can't even go out and get a job without parental permission. And we're not hearing about it as a mass shooting.
No, of course
right?
not.
We're hearing about it as
it's
an
Juneteenth.
unauthorized event.
Yeah, it's Juneteenth. What are you going to do? Criticize it, you racist KKK
And
member?
apparently, we can't call the shooter a mass shooter either. Or
No.
was this a multiple shooter incident? In which case, that's even worse, because why were multiple people firing off guns?
Well,
what was going on?
Yeah, well, the report, according to what we know, it started off. The chaos started after a fight broke out between some of the attendees of this unauthorized Juneteenth celebration, which, by the way, they're not supposed to do it without like requesting. You have to make a request to use, public property to do these things, right? And they didn't do it.
What did some of the attendees find to fight about, though? I mean, weren't they celebrating something great?
Well, no, because like I said, it's meaningless, because essentially it was just an excuse to party, but they didn't even do their due diligence to like essentially make a request to do it officially, so that the police and the city would, I guess, help them out, or just know that they're going to do something that day or whatever. And the police showed up, but they didn't, make them stop, because it was probably out of their hands. But also on some level they were like, well, what are we going to do? Break up this Juneteenth party? I mean, what are we, racist?
Here's the thing. All right. I've been at parties with teenagers that actually own guns. A lot of the guys I went to school with were avid hunters. Every house I was ever in when I was growing up was likely to have at least one gun in it. We knew we weren't supposed to go handling them. Like if one belonged to one of the guys, he might show it to the other hunters in the group or the other gun enthusiasts in the group. But we weren't to go around like just grabbing them, and they weren't toys. We knew that, right? But they were there. All right. And I've been at places, I've been at parties, I've been at events, indoors and out, where fights broke out and nobody shot anybody. So I'm asking again, I'm kind of wondering what kind of trouble was this, that these guys, they get into a fight, and instead of throwing punches, the first thing they do is pull out a gun. What kind of activities are people involved in normally when that's their go-to method of fighting? It's definitely not tiddlywinks, right? It's not football. It's not chess club. It's not even being an avid hunter, because an avid hunter doesn't carry his gun around all the time, and he can take some hunting with him. Even a gun enthusiast doesn't necessarily, unless he is interested in being the bodyguard in society, and they don't usually start pulling their gun out unless somebody else already has one pointed at people. So this kind of strikes me as hinky, and that's probably why we're not hearing about it as a mass shooting.
Of course not.
Because of why they were shooting at each other, and what kind of activities the shooters were involved in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because again, Washington D.C. is, in terms of its crime and all of its problems, is very similar to Chicago. And in Chicago,
right,
most of the time when people get shot, it's personal beef. Like, it's not just somebody who just feels like killing random strangers. It's almost always personal beef, and it's got something to do with gangs.
Right.
And gangs
and what
exist.
Do we know?
Yeah, go ahead.
What do we know about this? We know that a young man is 50% more likely to be involved in that kind of activity, to be on the wrong side of the law, to get in trouble with the law, and to be in these kinds of conflicts. If one thing is missing from his life, one thing, father involvement.
Of course, that's what it comes back to. This is why I said it's important that we look at not just this unfortunate tragedy of this 15-year-old boy being killed at this unauthorized DC music festival that wasn't supposed to be there, that no one in the police or in the government felt the need or the desire to break it up because they didn't want to be called racist, because they wouldn't want to interrupt a federal holiday being celebrated by people who clearly know the history, and they're not simply there because it's an excuse to get drunk and lit and, turned up. And that it also happens to take place when it could have been a Father's Day thing, and all of these people could have been at home with their dads, having like a nice dinner or doing something with him, like fishing or something. But no, they're over here, all of them fatherless, or most of them fatherless, and they're just engaging in shenanigans. And of course, the media is not going to report on it. I had to find this on the Daily Mail, which, even they don't have a lot of the info. And we're not supposed to see a thorough line. We're not supposed to notice that. And we're supposed to simply ignore the fact that Father's Day is essentially being erased, and it's being replaced with this. And they're going to get more of this, by the way. We're going to have more of these festivals. We're going to have more of these massive block parties, and more people are going to be hurt, because we're not addressing the root problem, and instead we're just engaging in some kind of ritual celebrating some obscure, abstract notion of blackness, and it's actually going to do more harm than good. But whatever.
We should have a better name for Juneteenth.
Uh-huh.
Because it's essentially like the whole thing is it's information that arrived very slowly. Arrived late. We could call it, and I think I got a better name, Slow News Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and just the thing is, the reporting on this, one of the things that really pisses me off about this is they're reporting on it like the problem was that this was an unpermitted event. And that is the absolute least important thing about it. The fact that it was unpermitted, you could have 1,000 unpermitted events in your city, and this would never happen if every home had two parents raising their kids together and focused on their family and taking care of their family and living their lives. You would not have the gang violence that you have. You would not have the drug culture that you have. You wouldn't have most of these social ills that lead to this. And if they did have a celebration, it would be peaceful and fun. And if the cops showed up and said, "Hey, you need to get a permit for this," they would have figured they would have figured a way to get that permit, or they would have moved it someplace where you're permitted to gather anytime you want.
Yeah. Well, again, that's where we are, and being that it was Father's Day, I just felt like there is clearly something that people are missing that's really important. So, okay, so I got some super chats, and then I think we're going to move on to the next story, which means the show is going to end on YouTube. Because some of these other stories might be a little bit too spicy. If this one wasn't too spicy, but I stand by everything I said. So let me know what you guys think about that in the comments.
I thought this story was going to be fourth when I figured out my rant there. So sorry if I get us from YouTube. The show
No. It's okay. I think that if anybody gets us in trouble, it'll be me. But I'm hoping that my brownness will protect me. So. Meredith G gives us $5 and says, "Happy Father's Day to dads, granddads, foster fathers, adopted fathers, and father figures. Mothers, stick to your holiday." Johnny Boy Quick Draw. By the way, in before Mother's Day is made into a federal holiday and Father's Day is not. Johnny Boy Quick Draw gives us $2 and says, "Someone has to tell Amber Heard about Toilet Day." I think she knows and just doesn't care. Richard Bier gives us $1.99 and says, "Where were Pookie and Ray Ray for security?" That's a little spicy. Okay, so thank you guys for the super chats. Let me just make sure that there's nothing on Rumble. Yes, there are. Jonathan Doman gave us a Rumble rant for $5 and another Rumble rant for $5. And he says, "Is Juneteenth just a way to ignore Father's Day? To be honest, I don't think so. It's It is a second, or if you prefer, a Black 4th of July, just my opinion. Yeah, I disagree with it. Again, it's designed to divide. Black people have a 4th of July. It's called the 4th of July. That like, if you make everything segregated, which is the thing I thought we were supposed to be against, then it just creates more resentment, which is really what they want. So don't fall for this crap. Stop falling for this. Stop worrying about what people think about what you think if you disagree. Stop worrying about being called racist. It's just a weapon. It's not based in reality. Black people have 4th of July. It's called 4th of July.
The big question should be, if this has been a thing for all this time, how come the overwhelming majority of people in the United States are only hearing about it now?
Yeah. Well, again, it's not based in, like, they make it out into this thing that sounds nice, but it's absolutely destructive, cancerous, and sinister. And you have to toss it out. You have to. So stop going along with this garbage. There's no such thing as, like, do we want to now go and figure out what the 4th of July is for every race of people? Is that not retarded? Like, nobody cares about that. Once you're here,
as a British person, I'm offended by the very idea of 4th of
July. I'm just saying, like, this is not a well-intended thing. I know it looks like it, but you have to be able to see past this shit. It's not well-intended. It's not earnest. It is extremely deceptive and destructive. And that's by its design. That's why it exists. So Jonathan Doman gives us 5. Remember, the people who are behind Juneteenth, they don't think that black fathers should be involved with their children. They literally want the family to disintegrate. Can you honestly tell me that means that they have their best intentions? No, they don't. It's not about that. This is a lie. Jonathan Doman gives us $5 and says, God, I love Hannah. And then he gives us another $1 and says, good point, Hannah, about the thing that I guess you just said. So I'm
you're
not,
a sweetheart.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm not mad at anyone, but I'm just saying, like, you know, I just want to shake people that think, oh, it's just like another. No, it's not. Stop. Stop it. You're being so incredibly charitable to these people. It's time to stop.
If it had been, we would have all been hearing about it during the 80s Love Fest, where we were pretty much eliminating all forms of prejudice and bigotry and just getting along with each other and having a heyday for people just being people after the different strokes for different folks time period of the 70s. Mm-hmm. And not sometime after the 90s when woke culture sort of started bringing racism back.
Yeah. You know, it's funny.
About right after Kwanzaa was invented.
Yeah. Well, Kwanzaa was also, it
could have been DLC for Kwanzaa.
Yeah.
No, but like, it's funny that you talk about the, color blindness of the 80s that, we went through. What's funny about it is that none of this came from the government or the media or anything. It was just people raising their kids right, and then those kids got along. Like, that was it. It was from the bottom up. That's it. Okay. So when this is another thing that you need to remain vigilant on. When people start talking about top-down solutions to social problems, they are lying. They are lying, or they are misinformed. And if they're misinformed, then they're also lying about giving a shit about the subject, because if they gave a shit about the subject, they would be informed. But they don't want to be. So don't believe them. They are lying to you, okay? All of this comes from the bottom up. It comes from people being decent to each other and having an understanding of the difference between right and wrong, full stop, and treating people appropriately. That's it. Skin color has nothing to do with it. Gender has nothing to do with it. Sexual orientation has nothing to do with it. All right? Completely irrelevant. And when people try to shove that on you and tell you that it is about class, or it is about race, or it is about gender, or whatever, they are lying to you. They are lying because they want to divide us, period, okay? Because then we are easier to control. This is how they did all the damage they've done between men and women. They have made women terrified of men and become completely, or at least their goal is to make them completely codependent on the state, and then men will just be the worker bees that give women their resources through the state. And that's where we are right now because of the same rhetoric. So it's time to stop it, okay? It's only going to be made worse, and it's only going to redirect power to a very small percentage of elites that want it, so we don't have to give it to them. Bottom up, okay? So anyway, let us now move on to the next story. Thank you guys for all of the super chats. I should probably check and see if there's a super chows as well, because I know we get those. So yep, we do. This is from Michael Emmerich Winberg, who gives us $15 and says, it's the BAM festival all over again. Being a man is what it means for women. Also finding it funny that women's birth control are all added up and not taking into account that the pill, the most common and similar to a condom in how it needs to be maintained, is subsidized by the state. Yeah, I mean, I think it is under some conditions, but I think they want... It's
very subsidized by the state. Like, if you're on Medicaid, it pays for the pill. If you're on any kind of government-funded insurance, feminists fought for that, right? And then on top of that, if the state isn't directly subsidizing your purchase of it, it's still... Most brands are actually pretty cheap. And I believe it is because the drug companies themselves are also somewhat subsidized by the state. So women really can't claim that they're fully paying for that. But they still complain about it if they have an insurance company that doesn't cover their $10 birth control pills.
Hi, person living under a socialized healthcare system here. All of women's birth control is subsidized by the state. Condoms are not.
Oh, which means...
You mean like even the stuff like the VCF film that is basically just a little piece of plastic that dissolves inside your body with spermicide in it is covered like that?
I can't keep up with all the options women have. Like, I guess maybe not all of them.
That kind of thing is so cheap and easy to buy. Like, if the state's paying for that, it's ridiculous.
Well, they probably are.
Well, in Scotland, they've already untaxated tampons and that.
Oh, geez.
So it wouldn't surprise me if in the next few years anything a woman wants to do with her body will be subsidized by the state, and we'll still have to pay for condoms.
Yep.
Yeah, I know they're subsidizing IUDs, and I know I have to be careful because I always want to call those IEDs, which would definitely prevent pregnancy, but the cramping would be out of this world.
Don't want that pussy to be too bomb.
There we go. But yeah, they're subsidizing IUDs. They're subsidizing even the ones that wait until after conception takes place and then kill the baby, like the tiny little single-celled or a few cells, where when it really is just a clump of cells. And I know like all the patches, all the pills, all the shots, all that stuff, those are all subsidized. I guess I shouldn't be shocked if birth control film and foam and like things like the Today sponge and stuff like that are probably also subsidized and purchased through your gyno or something like that, because women have been bitching about that for 20 years as though those things are not something they're buying for recreation, and somebody owes them access to those through somebody else paying for it, and not just, yes, you can go into a store and buy this.
Yeah. Okay, so the super chats, let's see. Thank you for that one, Michael Emmerich Winberg. Remember, if something is subsidized by the state, that really means that men are paying for it. The state doesn't have money. It just takes money and then redistributes it. The aborted Prit gives us $5 and says, regarding the propaganda commercial from the beginning, I may be old-fashioned and bigoted, but having children cheer for birth control and abortion is kind of the same to me as having chicken cheer for KFC. I'm sorry for not getting the high IQ humor and political views of the educated people. Well, you should, because obviously his understanding of the comedic nuances is far beyond your small white brain to comprehend, whitey male. So, but yeah, no, I mean, I think it is really weird that you make an ad talking about how great abortion is while holding your daughter in your arms. Like, she's going to one day see this ad when she's older and is going to have a deeper understanding of what's being suggested, which is that she almost didn't exist. Isn't that weird? I think it's weird. So,
yeah, that is pretty bad.
I don't know, man. It doesn't seem like the right thing to do. All right, so we're going to go into the patron-only show now. Not the patron-only show. We're going to continue the show, but we're going to just quit YouTube because some of the other subject matter might not be okay with the YouTube, Gestapo. So if you want, you should go follow us on Rumble and other places where we're streaming. Thanks to all of you guys on the YouTubes, but we're gonna go now. So see you on the other streaming platforms.
I've already said fuck, so fuck off YouTube.
Brian, I've been thinking either before